Awesome. Did you want me to start with the socks?
Oh God, we forgot Matt's socks. Yes, we were going to get him on record today. Matt, I forgot to introduce Matt. You know what? Let's go back and introduce Matt. Um, See, I'm jumping in the gun. Matt is practices at Aspen Trail Counseling Center in Mesa, Arizona. He has recently gone out on his own, so he's now at Aspen Trail Counseling Center. He is an expert in EFT, which is emotionally focused therapy. He is also a certified sex addiction therapist. And most importantly, he does not like wearing shoes. So he has an extensive collection of fun socks, which usually I remember to make him show them off.
You usually do. So, well, first of all, I will tell you this. I have started posting little short videos to Instagram under the Shoeless Therapist. So if anybody wants to follow me, I thought it was kind of fun. I just went with it because it's like, and I show off my socks in those little short clips and stuff too. But so I was actually really excited when I got these socks, and this is the first time I wore them. I try to save my socks that I don't open them and wear them until I get on here.
Yeah, we almost always get new socks.
Oh, I try. But let me tell you that, like, I was excited when I saw them, and these are some of the most comfortable socks, honestly. And in Arizona, I don't like socks that are too thin, because socks that are too thin just feel like I'm wearing pantyhose, I mean, and that feels weird. And then socks that are too thick, I mean, I just sweat like crazy. But these socks are just that perfect blend. And to be honest, I had to, let's see here. I had to ask my wife, what are these? And they are tropical leaves and flowers.
Okay.
And they're cool though, because they're like, they got a little peach color in them, and they've got these tropical leaves and flowers and stuff. So anyway, I thought these were fun.
Yeah, I like them.
Anyway, so now that I've gotten the socks out of the way, and I've shamelessly plugged my Instagram account.
The shoeless therapist, people, go to Instagram. If you're going to be on Instagram, and I tell my porn addicts, no Instagram for you. But if you have to go to Instagram,
well, follow me, and in the comments, tell me what you want me to make little videos on. More than happy to. So I would love the feedback. So I just thought it was a fun way for me to be creative.
Cool.
Okay, so what we're going to jump into today is actually, I've thought a lot about what I call the barriers to connection. We all want connection. We crave connection. And I tried to come up with like a list of reasons. Maybe the way I say it is the story that we tell ourselves that keep us from connecting. And I'll just go through some of these kind of quick. I tried to come up with as many as I could and cover like the gamut, especially the stories I hear from people. So one of the big ones, I don't want to be a burden to others. The next one I wrote is, I don't want to be burdened by others. And I wrote this in a slightly different way. I don't have the bandwidth. After I have a long day, after I do everything I need to do, like if somebody comes to me, I just don't have the emotional energy within me. Another thing is others won't be honest if they feel burdened. I hear that so often, because I'll say, why don't you tell your spouse? Why don't you tell your friend? Why don't you tell your sibling? And they say, you know what? They won't be honest if they're burdened. They will let me overburden them. I'm going to wear out my friendship or our connection. And so I'm just not going to share. In addition to that, you have a worry or a fear of being rejected, or a worry and a fear of being betrayed or judged. And I think that's really common for most of us, right? Like, I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be judged. And for some of us, I don't want to be betrayed. I'm not going to share any more of my vulnerability. You also have, I don't want or need connection. So that's something people say that all the time. I don't want connection. I don't need connection. I actually have one on here. I'll just share it right now. I define myself as shy or introverted. And I've had a few people who are on the more introverted side say, I don't like this one. being an introvert or being shy does not mean you don't need connection. It means that the way you get connection and the way you get your energy refilled is just different than somebody who's an extrovert. But you can't use being introverted as a reason for not getting connection. We all need connection, even if as an introvert, you might want a smaller group of people or person to get connection with at a time. Whereas somebody like me or Scott, it's like, bring on the crowds, baby. Right? No, no way, Scott. You can't, you have to be an extrovert.
I'm an extroverted introvert.
Okay.
I like people, but I like them in smallish doses. I get worn out. I know I'm an introvert because groups of people wear me out.
Interesting. No, that's exactly it. You need the connection, but groups of people drain your battery, and then you refill your battery, and then you get back with a group of people, and then you drain your battery again. And I'm the opposite. Give me the group, fill my battery up, then I'm like, leave me alone. I need time alone, because I'm definitely more on the extroverted side. And then another thing that people will say is that I'm waiting for others to bring me into their circle. I need others to show me that I'm wanted. And so I'm just going to stay here on the outskirts and wait for people to bring me in. People will also tell me I feel inadequate. I don't have anything to offer. Here's another one that I find more often than, like, I find this so commonly. People will say, my spouse or my kids, my family meets all my connection needs. And I feel bad because I want to say that's not possible. Is it possible? Maybe, but you better be living with a lot of extended family in order for that one to actually be happening. We need more than just our spouse can't meet all of our needs, and our kids can't meet all of our needs, because in our relationship with our kids, I'm the mentor and they're the mentee. And so I may get some needs met through my kids or through my spouse, but not everything. Another one I hear often is I'm too busy. Others are not a priority. Maybe my family takes priority, my work takes priority, whatever it is. I'm too busy. And here's another one that I think is not so fun. I missed the opportunity to connect. I failed when I had the chance. And this is almost like somebody who I'll ask them questions like, and like, for instance, I'll say, well, tell me, are you in a church community? Are you in a work community or social environment of any sort? And they'll say, no, I missed the chance when I had it. And so that's one that's, I think, is interesting. It's like, the opportunity was there, I didn't do it, and now it's passed. And then here's another one that I hear a lot too. Others won't keep my information confidential. Right. And so here's and I ask people, write these all down. Well, I have a slide that I'll show people, and I'll say, write them out, rank them. What's your first to your 12th? And if you can think of any others, guys, tell me, because I'll add them to my list if I didn't catch something. Reasons that prevent, at least the story in our head that keeps us from connecting with another person. Because we use these things, and then these thought processes affect the way that we act. These become core beliefs, and they affect the way that we engage with other people. And so if I, for instance, say, I missed the opportunity when I had the chance, I may see somebody that I would want to connect with, and if I think, no, I missed it when I had the chance, then I'm not even going to try, because it's too late. They already see that I failed. They don't want to connect with me. They would have brought me in if they wanted, and that opportunity's passed. Well, it's going to, every time I run into people, if that's the belief that I have, I'm never going to make connection. So I'm curious, Scott, I think you wrote down some of these, or maybe have some questions. Where should we go with this?
God, this is so on point today. I spent an hour earlier today talking to somebody who is struggling to connect. And I pretty much heard every single one of these over the course of an hour. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to let people down. I'm afraid I'll fail. other people. I won't live up to their expectations, so I don't try. That's a big one. This individual is convinced that he doesn't need connection. Isn't my wife enough? I'm like, my God, you're putting a whole lot of burden on your poor wife. I mean, what do you expect from her? Is she not allowed to have her own life? We need more than one person. I'm shy, I'm introverted. Waiting for others to bring me in. Here's the interesting thing, because this individual recounted to me 2 situations where people are bringing him in or reaching out to bring him in, and he is resistant and terrified and doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I'm comfortable. I'm in my comfort zone. Why do I want to get out of my comfort zone? And it's really scary, Dan.
It is. And oh, somebody wrote, they won't tell me the truth anyway. That's a good one.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I remember when I first got married, I kind of had this idea that, like, if I were loyal to my wife, then I had to have her meet all my needs moving forward. Like, it's a weird thing to try to explain, but it wasn't even like, I just didn't think anything of it. I remember at the time going, why do I need guys' nights anymore? Or, why would I go spend time with the guys? Like, I committed my life to my spouse, right? It's hers now. And I need to do the same for her. And there was a period of time where, like, I really thought that for a while. And and I had to, and I don't think that it was rooted in anything, like, there was no ill intent. Right. It was just a lack of understanding. I remember feeling guilty when I would be like, hey, I want to go on a mountain bike trip with some guys. And I almost felt like I had to ask permission, and feeling guilty about it. Like, hey, I might actually have some things I like doing without you. And that's, that was immature me. How about that?
But I don't think it's an immature thing. I think it's, I think our culture tells us that when you get married, your significant other is your only other, rather than being the significant other. And women, I think, are actually better at having a posse than men are. We're bad at it.
I think there is a lot of truth there. I've mentioned it. I've mentioned on here that there's an article, what was it, in Harper's Bazaar called, it was something about basically men are lonely and women bear the burden.
Yeah.
And it's because there is something culturally that men don't rely on each other at this point, like women at least will. And so men, I think, often are really lonely. And then they inadvertently they put that burden on their spouses.
Yeah, and spouses, they have things they like to do without us. They don't want to spend every waking moment with us either.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I've realized I have lots of things I like to do without my wife. Like, and she doesn't like mountain biking, and even if she did, she probably wouldn't be fast enough for me. And so the truth is, I don't want to go mountain biking with her. Like, at this point, I'd go with her once in a while if she actually wanted to go, but like, I enjoy going at the pace I like going at, and that's great. But true, it's like we need to recognize that we enjoy things with other people.
So how do we break through these barriers to connection? Because they all come from shame. I'm not good enough. Nobody really wants me. That's basically what all this boils down to. Is if you knew the real me, you wouldn't want to hang out with me.
Yep. And I think first and foremost, we need to gain awareness of them. So we need to probably be writing them down every time we realize. And what I try and teach people is there's a feeling, and probably the easiest word to explain it is a longing. When you feel that longing of wanting to connect with somebody, wanting to be close, wanting to be accepted, wanting to talk to somebody, or or have them see you or be interested in you, that longing, if you can sit in that space, is going to tell you why you're not doing it. That's when I would probably look at this list and go, you know what? I am afraid that this person won't like who I really am. Or, no, I'm too shy. I can't do this. Okay, well, what's that about? And so I think first and foremost, we have to gain the awareness. I think the next important thing would probably, we need to find people we can start telling this to, even if it's just our spouse. Hey, I met the new neighbor and, I wanted to ask him if he wanted to go grab coffee or something. And but I was too freaked out. I think the story I tell myself is that he's too busy. He just moved in, and so we need to tell people what those barriers are when they come up. We need to define them and name them and give it a voice. And then we probably need to tell somebody, hey, I want you to hold me accountable. I'm going to try and ask that guy if he wants to go grab a coffee or something, right? So then we need to tell somebody else that we're trying to push through it. So that would probably be the first couple of steps I would do.
Yeah. So, and how hard is it? I mean, I know you've seen people push through this. How much time does it take? How much effort does it take? Does it depend on the person? I mean,
I'll tell you the funniest thing that I've found is that I can't tell you how many people will come into therapy and they'll pay me for a session and we'll talk and I will tell them, hey, I want you to reach out to one person this week and tell them this thing. And they're like, okay, I'll do it. And I'm surprised at how many people do it, because my thought is, seriously, what did it take that you had to come in, pay for a session with me to tell you to do that? And sometimes it's, well, I needed to have some skin in the game. If I'm going to pay money for therapy, I better do some of the things I'm encouraged to do. And so sometimes I think it's that. It's knowing they're going to come back to the next session and I'm going to ask, hey, how did that go? And they're going to tell me I didn't do it. Now, on my end, I'm fine. I'm going to say, how come? Yeah. If they didn't do it, that doesn't bother me. Well, okay, then tell me why. We're going to learn something here. Well, I didn't do it because I totally forgot. Really? How often in your life do you forget things? So then we might then start working on ways that they can remember. All right, you need to put a reminder in your phone every day for the next week. You're going to do this. And then if they still don't do it, really? Why? That reminder popped up. It did, right? And then you start digging in to try and figure out more and more. But most people do it when they have accountability, at least from their therapist.
Yeah. And when they do it, and I mean, I'm just going to assume that response is usually positive. Yeah, of course, I'd love to have coffee with you.
Most of the time, people feel flattered with a response of, or, every once in a while, it's like, man, I'm telling you, things are crazy. I'm moving in and I don't have time to get coffee this week, but could we do 2 weeks from now? Usually somebody will follow up with something like that. And then I'll say, did you offer to help him move in with anything? And they're like, I didn't even think about it. Well, shoot, if he's busy, you might just ask if he could use some help.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's funny, but most of the time it's positive. Every once in a while, somebody will say, oh, it was bad. And I'm like, really? Tell me more. Because, they're not all going to be positive. You really will have some bad experiences.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, because this is something I went through, about 90% positive and about 10% less so. But what I've learned over the years is the people who don't respond positively are as withdrawn as I am, or more so sometimes. And they're really hurting and damaged. And it's, I told you, about the guy I was talking to earlier, people are reaching out to him and he's still pulling back. It's still too scary for him.
Yeah.
And it's not that he doesn't like these people or doesn't want them. I mean, he's flattered, but he's struggling with it. So I gave it, it's like, okay, well, pick up the phone and say, yeah, I'll go have a beer with you after work. Call that person back.
Oh, totally. No, and I try and encourage people. Like I'll say, hey, why don't you tell me what exactly happened when you felt rejected by them? And a lot of times it really is like, hey, is it possible that they're just scared? Is it possible that they're just, nervous or whatever? And a lot of times it's like, man, they really, yeah, I followed up. I pushed a little harder and we did it and it was great. A lot of times it's just people who are equally scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my experience. I always say I want to be invited to the party, but then when it gets down to it, I really don't want to go. And in recovery, I force myself, to keep my commitment. Yes, I said I would come to the party, and I have a great time. But boy, get my booty out the door is not
Oh,
easy.
totally. Everybody feels bad being invited, but when it comes time to going, most of us are like, oh, I don't really want to go. And then you go and you
Yeah,
have a good time.
yeah, always. Okay, let's jump into our questions.
Yeah,
Sex and Love Addict here.
You guys jumped on it. This is good.
Yeah.
We got questions.
How can I connect with my wife if she doesn't want to talk to me? This came in even before you started talking today, but right on point. How can I connect with my wife if she doesn't want to talk to me? I try to stay present, but she wants and deserves her space. I'm sober and working my program, but I can't but feel the shame. I can't help but feel the shame that this is the bet I've made. How can I help her heal?
Okay, so there's two things that pop into my head as I read this. The first one is I can't help but feel shame. And I'm going to really challenge you. Like, I want you to work. I wanted to say, I want you to work harder. I don't know how hard you're working, right? But what comes up for me is you say you can't help but feel the shame. And I don't blame you. You're going to feel shame as you see her hurt. But I want you to really work through the shame so that you can own, yes, I've hurt her, but I'm not a terrible person. I'm a loving spouse who cares about my wife. And I can't change the bed that I've made, but I can change how I react moving forward. And it's probably going to take you a bit of time. But I'm going to encourage you, start journaling your shame, share it with others, work with your therapist on overcoming that shame, because the less you feel shame and the more you can be present in her hurt and pain. My guess is it's not that she doesn't want to talk to you. It's that maybe she's nervous that you may not be able to feel her pain or sit with her in her pain. You might need to learn just to be present with her pain and her hurt. The next thing that comes to my mind is you might go to her and say, I know a lot of times you're not wanting to talk, and if you don't, that's fine, but I'd really like to do some things with you. Can we go on a walk? I won't talk if that's not what you want. Can we plan a date? We'll go to dinner. We'll go to a movie. I'm not a huge movie fan, but maybe that's what you guys do. And you say, look, I'm not going to pressure you to talk, but I do want to spend time with you. I want to work on rebuilding our marriage. I want to work at slowly repairing. So I would just be making invitations, and I would tell her, this is my need. I want to go on a date. I want to go on a walk. I want to spend time together. And if you're not, I would hope that if you can meet some of my needs, that would be great. If you can't, let me know. But I would keep doing your best to try and be present and try to get out of your shame as much as possible. You can't be present with her emotionally if you truly are spiraling in your own shame. And so that would be my quick take on how you can help her heal. Scott, did you have anything to add?
Well, I'm just wondering, how can I connect with my wife if she doesn't want to talk to me? Have we reality checked this statement?
No, that's true.
I mean, I was just like, oh, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to.
No, it's so true. Honey, the story I tell myself is you don't want to talk to me. Is that actually what's going on, or am I misunderstanding? She might say, no, I want to talk, but honestly, I don't have words. I don't know what to say. I'm hurting so bad. I have nothing to share. Okay. So So is it that if you don't know what to say, can I share what you must be feeling? Can I repeat back to you what this must be like for you? Right? I love it, Scott. I love that you called me out on it, right? We were just talking about this. You are creating a story that she doesn't want to talk. She may even tell you she doesn't want to talk. And I would check it in and say, is that you don't want to talk always? Like you never want to talk again? Or you're having a hard time talking right now? Or you don't know what to say? Maybe we can read a book on betrayal together. Maybe we can read, another book together on how to listen to each other.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
practice empathy skills together.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. I mean, listen to a podcast, or, you know, there's all kinds of couples exercises that sort of help people walk back into intimacy after betrayal. I know Bill and Ginger Burkaw have a book. I think it walks people back toward sexual intimacy as well as emotional intimacy, but it's like it's months of work to get there.
Oh, totally.
And you know, sort of almost like a guided meditation, but a guided conversation or something. You know, anyway. But yeah, I would say reality check that. Does she really not want to talk to you? Because she might actually really want to talk. You know, but it's when I pick up the phone, you know, it's like, oh, they're probably busy. They're, you know, 100 excuses not to try because I'm afraid of being rejected. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That one. Okay. Next one. My husband 2 years ago disclosed that he was acting out with sex workers. He just told me this week that he also acted out with regular people. And not just that, but he also went out on dates. And then he has still been masturbating and watching porn. And then he acted out last year when he was supposedly in his recovery. Besides being upset, rightfully so, I'm in crisis because of these regular dates and the length of betrayals. Are the dates still part of his addiction or not? Is there any way to determine?
So you're in crisis because disclosure happened this week. And
in this fashion.
And in this fashion, right? You're not in crisis because of the dates. Although that's painful and confusing, and you're trying to figure out what in the world that means, you're in crisis because you've been lied to. Lying is way worse than any of the behavior he could have done. And especially if you felt like he had told you that there was a foundation of truth that's been moving forward for the last 2 years. That's why you're in crisis. This is crazy painful, and you've now learned that there's been essentially a staggered disclosure and a length of supposed recovery with a bunch of falsehoods. So you have every right to be in a crazy amount of pain right now. Please reach out to your support system, get the support you need. I'm going to go to, Seeking Integrity has partner support groups and your 12 steps groups as well. And anywhere else you can reach out and get support, because you are in crisis because of the lying is part of the acting out. The dating is part of the acting out. I mean, I want to reaffirm to you, the porn, the masturbation, the sex workers, the sex with regular people, all of that, it sounds like part of acting out. It all sounds like part of the addiction. From my perspective, I would need, I don't know how you would, like in my head, I'm going, how would you separate the dates out from the addiction? I don't know that I even could. It's all wrapped into the same thing. Those are just forms of acting out. If you don't have a marital agreement, it's husband. So if you don't have a marital agreement that he's allowed to go on dates with other people, then it's a violation of your marital agreement, and therefore part of his acting out, part of his betrayal. And so I hope that answers the question. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be put into the addiction / betrayal category. Whether it's addiction or not, it's betrayal. Whether it's, no matter what it is, it's crisis and pain for you, because now you're trying to make sense of your world. So I am so sorry that you're in the amount of pain that you're in right now. This is, like, as you know, the worst feeling. It probably feels worse than 2 years ago because you thought you were making progress. this has to hurt so bad.
Yeah, I think just to hit on that last point you made, after I'm discovered and then I keep acting out, that's got to hurt worse because you've already told me how much it hurt you when 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 you caught me the first time, and I'm still doing it.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's an extra layer of betrayal. Like, I actually really know for sure that this bothers you a lot, and
Right.
I'm doing it anyway.
And let me tell you, and I don't know for sure in this case, but I can't tell you how many people have gotten into recovery and learned recovery and used recovery to create safety, but all the while continuing to act out. So now recovery in and of itself almost becomes this tool of betrayal. And so then it's like, well, shoot, if I can't even trust recovery, what can I trust? And so this is such a painful place to be, because the things you have trusted have been used against you in a way, even if it wasn't advertly. I don't know how to say that. Uh, Even if it wasn't overt, it's so painful. Gosh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry you're in this pain, and I hope that answers your question.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Matt. Betrayed partner, 17 years of chronic infidelity. We're both working recovery with support groups and CSAT. Yay.
Yeah, good
One
job.
1 month post disclosure after waiting 19 months. I'm still struggling to open myself up again after many, many, many broken promises and commitments pre and post discovery for years. And most recently, another broken commitment to be proactive about planning connection activities post disclosure. I think what is best for the relationship is for me to open up, but I feel like this is reckless for me and I'm assuming scary as heck.
Oh, I
Uh,
think it come. I think
maybe.
it's
Here we go.
yeah.
No, is this follow up?
Well, so these are
And sending a dysfunctional message to my addict that I'm okay with these old and toxic patterns of me being overly forgiving despite the broken commitment and lack of accountability. How do I put the relationship first while balancing um, not being self-abandoning and reinforcing old toxic unhealthy patterns? What can he do to show accountability that I can actually trust now? So there's a whole bunch there.
Oh yeah. So let's start here. If you're a month out from what looks like disclosure, like have every um you have every right to take the time that you need before as you learn to increase vulnerability. I think being a month out from disclosure, it might be vulnerable enough for you just to say, hey, I'm willing to go on a date. I'm not willing to talk about anything or share. I don't know exactly how to tell you what vulnerability should look like, but I am reading this thinking, I think you're judging yourself too strongly, too harshly, thinking that you need to get more vulnerable quicker. Now, if I read this right, the only piece I didn't like was I don't want to send a dysfunctional message to my addict and partner that I'm okay with these old and toxic patterns of me being overly forgiving. What I'm going to tell you there is it's not about what message you send. Figure out what forgiveness actually needs to look like to you. You can do forgiveness without trusting, if that makes any sense. Like, you can forgive somebody without giving them trust to hurt you again. I'm not saying that eventually, if you're going to have a really healthy relationship, you have to give the space for that person to hurt you just as bad as they ever have. But like, be patient with yourself. Let yourself take as much time as you need. Ask yourself, what's something I can do that's a little more vulnerable today or a little more vulnerable this week? But man, you're a month out after 17 years. Give yourself a little grace. I hope it's okay that I'm saying that strongly. Like, just make your vulnerability small. and learn to figure out what your vulnerability needs to look like, and let that trust rebuild slowly. Don't put pressure on yourself that you've got to say, oh, you've been a month sober, it's all good. No, it's going to take a while. um let's see
Yeah,
here.
the one sentence I wanted to pull out is most recently he's broken his commitment to be proactive about planning connection activities post disclosure. So he's supposed to be reaching out to her post disclosure for connection activity. Hey, let's go for a walk and talk, or let's do our
Right.
Thanos check-in, or
No,
whatever.
and I would say, I would say that if there are commitments or promises that are being
Yeah,
broken, that's a perfect valid reason to withhold vulnerability, because you're not showing me that you're going to follow through with what you've committed to. And so I'm going to hold back for my own safety. I'm not holding back to teach you a lesson. I'm holding back because you haven't shown me that the way is clear or safe. And so you definitely need to say, hey, I'd like to be more vulnerable. I need to see you follow through with these things. I'm willing to be a little more vulnerable when I can see that you follow through with these things. It's like, when you're willing to shine the light a little bit further in front of me, I'll take another step.
yeah,
So,
and just from the other side of this, which is what we were talking about earlier, the barriers to connection. I mean, I'm the addict here in my world. Um, I make a commitment to call somebody on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I don't do it. And I have 100 reasons not to do it. And they're all that I'm being nice to you by not calling you. Because you don't want to hear from me. You don't really like me. I don't want to be a burden. And so I don't do what I committed to do. And I tell myself I'm being nice to you, but in point of fact, I'm hurting you all over again because I've made these commitments and I'm not keeping them. But addicts, our thinking can get very distorted around this barrier to connection. And I know everybody has barriers to connection, but addicts in particular have barriers to
oh,
connection.
addicts have the addiction as a layer of barrier.
Yeah,
Like, I'm going to keep people away just by my addiction.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I totally agree with Matt. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be all that vulnerable right now either.
Mm-mm.
Especially anybody a month after disclosure it's a delicate time.
And I think it's important to say, I'd like to be more vulnerable. Here's what I'm needing to see. And I think I might be able to, respond with a little more vulnerability. Like, teach the person what you think you might be needing in order to be more vulnerable.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, and let him know it's like, you were committed to do this and you're not doing it. And um, I want to be vulnerable, and that's our supposed to be our vulnerable time, and you're
Yeah,
not reaching out.
it's scary to me when you say you're going to do something and you don't. I don't
Yeah,
know how to respond. I feel afraid.
yeah,
Yeah. That is vulnerable. And that might be about as vulnerable as I'd be willing to get. I'm
right.
willing to tell you I'm scared because you're not following through. And that's my vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah, and super legitimate. So
Oh my gosh, yes.
okay, I'm sober for over 2 years from porn use and all the lies and deceit that come with that behavior. I regularly attend recovery groups. I find that my wife blames me for things since disclosure. If a child of ours acts up, she blames me about how my parenting created this. If she has trouble eating, she blames me. What is her attachment bid here? Do I have a platform to say that I am not to blame? How can I get curious with her in a non-manipulative way on why she blames me for these things? We are currently in an in-house separation and she will not do couples counseling since I am her abuser. This is somebody who has listened to you because
Yeah.
we've got Matt language here.
Oh,
Like in the
totally.
question.
Oh no, I read it and I'm like, oh, this is good. Okay, so let's break it down slowly. Good job on your recovery work. Good job being here and asking good questions, all of you, by the way. So it says, you say you find that she blames you, and I'd be so. Let's see. Let's take this scenario. If a child of ours acts up, she blames me how my parenting created this. Um, I probably would try to lean into that with something along the lines of, um, like, I'm trying to figure out how to approach this because I see this type of thing happen a lot. I would probably say, hey, it sounds like you're in pain, and it sounds like you're frustrated with our child. And what it sounds like you're telling me this is my fault, and I'm wondering, if you believe it's my fault, can you walk me through and explain um how how and why um I'm connected to this, or is this just you being frustrated that I was somewhat absent in my acting out and in parenting? Is this just you trying to tell me you're exhausted and that you need help, or that you need me to try and take over and help to parent in this scenario? Like, that's where I start to hear the attachment bid of is this just her saying, look, I'm tired and I've done a lot of the work. Can you jump in here and help with our kid? Or can you come up with a solution? She might be blaming you. And I ask people all the time, are you trying to blame me? Or is this just your way of saying you're frustrated with the situation? And if you slow it down and lean in with that, that can often help. But I would say the fact that she's even telling you about it is her trying to say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, I'm lonely, I'm confused as to what to do here. And the attachment bid is her reaching to you for connection and support, but you have to be able to hear the subtle jabs or the not so subtle jabs and digs as her like lashing out in pain and saying, I need you. And it's the equivalent of, like, if she's drowning and you're in a pool, she's going to be thrashing and pulling you under the water because she's trying to get air. Her body's just saying, under no circumstance are we going to drown here, get air. And even though I'm accidentally going to drown someone else. So that's what I would probably lean into. Do I have a platform to say that I'm not to blame? I think of course you do. We all do. I think it comes into the delivery. I would probably say something like, hey, I have screwed up a lot of things in our lives, in our relationship, in my parenting. I'm confused how what I've done relates to this specific scenario. Can you help me? Right? Can you give me insight? And so I think you can get curious and try and pull that out. And you can even say, I hear your hurt. I hear your pain. I'm not sure that I can take ownership over this exact situation, but I can take ownership that I've impacted you negatively. I've impacted the kids negatively. But what I can do right now is show up this way. What I can do, I'm happy to pull the kid aside and we can have a chat. I'm happy to read this parenting book with you and see if we can get on the same page with this, right? Here's where I can take ownership now. And that's far more important than saying, I'm not to blame. You can't put this on me, right? I don't think that helps her or you. I think arguing why it's not your fault is not helpful. I think you should move straight into, here's what I do see. Here's what I do understand. Here's what I am willing to do. How would you feel if we did this, hon? Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's just, what can I do? You may have to ask, what can I do to make this situation better?
And the only thing you are right, but the mistake a lot of us make is, instead of we say, what can I do to make this better? Start by giving solutions first. Like, yeah, like, hey, would it be helpful? I've heard that The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel is a really good parenting book. Would it be helpful if we read that together and see if we could figure out how to get on the same page with our parenting styles? Or, I could take the kid aside and have a conversation. Would that help? And so if you come in with a few things and then you say, what else could I do, do you think, that would help you feel supported here? When you come in with some ideas, it doesn't look like you're putting the burden back on her.
Thank you.
By saying, I don't know what to do. Why don't you tell me? I don't know what to do. Tell me. Well, if
Just,
you don't have any
just tell me
ideas,
how to fix it and I'll do it.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
burden's all on them. And even as I said that, what can I do to make this better? I was like, well, that's not going to work.
No, it's actually really good. But if you come with the other stuff
Right.
first,
Yeah,
right? Hey, I can
absolutely.
tell you're upset. Can I give you a hug? Can I sit beside you? Can I hold your hand? Is there anything else I could do for you? Right? Like, rather than just always telling the person, well, what can I do? Well, if you don't know, how am I supposed to know? Right? Go when we're in a crappy place, we don't know. I remember my buddy Troy, who's on here a lot, he was asking me one day, what can I do? I don't know what to do to help you. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, Troy. Stop asking me. I was seriously so mad. I was like, stop asking. I don't know what you can do. And really, all I needed him to do, which is what he was doing, was listen to me.
Yeah.
And he did. He listened to me rant and rave and vomit for a long period of time. And I knew he was there, but he couldn't fix it.
Which is, yeah. Okay. My spouse frequently shares about a goal to ask another male out for lunch or dinner, but he hasn't done it over and over and over again. It's always the same three people, and doesn't expand his community. Why? He doesn't say why. I'm not sure if he's actually gone to lunch or dinner or not. I think he has not. So anyway, he's not expanding his social network. Why not? He doesn't say why he's not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just going to throw out a quick idea, it's safe not to expand your network, right? Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, why do we stay at the same job we always stay at? Why do we, I don't know, go to the same church all the time? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to throw. Why do we do the things we do? Because we're comfortable. It requires risk. It requires vulnerability. Like, if we started exploring our spirituality, that's a little scary, like if we started exploring other friend groups, if we go to a different 12-step, if we go change jobs, it's scary. It's comfortable to be where we're at. So that would be my guess as to why.
Yeah.
But
yeah, what if I become friends with Matt and he's a jerk? What if we play the what if game?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always worst case scenario. We live in the wreckage of what if.
And here's what I actually hear. Here's what I really hear you saying. I care about my husband and I'm worried about him. Well, if he only has 3 people, like, I'm nervous that all it takes is a couple of those friends having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, or one of them moving away. And this doesn't feel secure enough. This doesn't feel broad enough. And I'm going to answer that, yeah, I don't blame you for being scared. That's you caring about your partner. And so what would it look like to go to your spouse and say, hey, I've kind of bugged you about not asking the same 3 people, but I realize I'm actually just scared and I don't want to see you have such a narrow support system. I want to make sure that you have as many people as you can because life's hard. And so try taking your vulnerability to your spouse and letting him know that, like, that you have concern and that you want to make sure that he has as much support as he can.
Okay, next one here. Okay, what if he stays silent and this is the addict? What if the addict stays silent and so unfocused on everything else that he doesn't hear or acknowledge my requests to communicate? I'm delighted he's come out with his addiction because I've learned more about him in 11 days than I've known in 22 plus years.
Wait, was this a follow-up to a previous question?
I don't know if it is or not, but let's treat it as a separate maybe. Or
okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. What if he stays silent and so unfocused on everything that he doesn't hear or acknowledge my request to communicate? So my first thought there is that could be a defense mechanism of just like isolation, just to it's not uncommon that if we're in pain, we just isolate because it's well, it feels safer to shut down, to not talk about emotions. And I love that you're delighted that he's come out with his addiction. You learned more about him in 11 days. If he's 11 days out after 22 plus years, then him being isolated, unfocused is like totally normal. Like it's not healthy long term. And so that's where we're going to work on, like, let's get into therapy, let's get into, a support group, let's get into a therapy group, let's get into finding people to connect with, right? But like if you're 11 days out from disclosure after 22 plus years, then silent, unfocused, not hearing your acknowledged for requests to communicate. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if at this point your request to communicate feels like pressure, feels like nagging, even though it's not. It's just he doesn't have the coping mechanisms to hear that you're just trying to say, I love you and I need you and I'm grateful that you're being vulnerable with me after 22 plus years. Like, and so he hears any bid for connection as a threat. And that's just like normal human behavior, especially if somebody's been in addiction for 22 plus years. Like, goodness me. So I love that you're on here. But that would be my quick take on, and it's going to just take, you might want to ask questions like, hey, when I reach to you wanting closeness, do you feel like I'm attacking you? When I reach to you wanting to connect, do you feel like I'm nagging? And you're asking the question, not because you're nagging, not because you're attacking. You just want to know how he hears it. And I've said this before, it's really unfortunate being a betrayed partner, because I swear betrayed partners get dumped on with all this new information. And then it's like, oh, and you need to wait for your partner who struggles with the addiction to get better before you can start getting more connection. Hey, good luck waiting. Like, it's so crappy to be a betrayed partner in this mess, but like, honestly, good job on you. Sorry, was that
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% on point. I love this next one's not a connection. It's kind of on our topic for the day. The story I tell myself is that I don't get anything out of connection. Just being in proximity is good enough. And I've heard that one too.
There is some truth there. I can't tell you how many times there are times where I'm just in the room with somebody and it just feels better. It just feels better because I know they're there. We don't even need to talk about anything. I know the person cares about me. I know I'm important to them. And just being in proximity feels good enough. Now, there is a part of me that
I think what you just described about proximity is under that is there is a connection and we both know it and we're both comfortable with it.
Correct. Absolutely. And so it's more than just proximity. There's already established safety. But if you take somebody who's like never had connection their whole life, then even just being in a room with people where there's no connection, but like there's calmness is like, wow, this feels amazing. Like there's calmness. And just being in proximity of people who are calm feels amazing. Like that's like saying a drop of water is better than nothing. And why not? Right? Like, why not? So I guess I'm looking at that going, that story that you tell yourself may not be as bad as you think. I would just say, as you move along, just work on getting it deeper and deeper on the connection side. Like, you might start by just telling somebody, hey, just being in the same room with you is so comforting. Thank you. And that's where you start.
Yeah. The fact that, and after a betrayal, sometimes, the fact that you're willing to still live in the same house as me is really comforting to me and gives me hope that I can undo the damage and repair and re-earn your trust and et cetera, et cetera. I want to jump to this one here. How long should you be sober before couples EFT therapy, emotionally focused therapy?
That is a really good question. I don't know that I have an exact answer because every couple is different. I know that while somebody is acting out in their addiction, from an EFT perspective, we see that as a competing attachment. And so there's really only so much attachment work we can do while there is a competing attachment. So we can still do some work there, but we aren't going to probably get nearly as deep and connected long-term if that competing attachment stays there. And so I don't think you have to be sober but you need to understand that like there are some limitations. And it really comes down to this. I've had couples that even right after disclosure, there is some sense of stability and they can start working as a couple on some very basic EFT concepts that are really helpful. And I've seen other situations where there's too much instability and we need to focus only on the stabilization of each individual person. In that case, EFT couples therapy may not be great to start at all. So it depends on the couple. It just what I'm looking for is if they both have are able to hold a reasonable level of stability. But even if, let's say, his shame comes up, we can focus on the shame and teaching how to reach to each other in that shame. And as far as the acting out, if there's dishonesty and there's lying, the couples therapy can be really tough, because then it's like, well, we don't really know what we're working with. But if you have some acting out, so they're not sober, but they're being honest about it, there's actually quite a bit we can still do. And I would talk to your individual EFT couples therapist to find out what their comfort level is, because some of them will say, no, just work your own program. Others will say, no, I think I've got some really good tools that we can do in the meantime. And we may just have to maybe put a pause on it when we get as far as we can.
Yeah, and either way, both parties, I mean, sometimes people think they go to couples counseling and that's going to fix everything, and it doesn't. I still have my issues, you still have your issues, I still need my support and my individual therapy and my 12-step, and you still need whatever your support is. I mean, with my therapist, I'm the client. With your therapist, you're the client.
Yep.
With our couples therapist, the relationship is the client. And all three of us, you, me, and the relationship, need help, but I've got to be stabilized and you've got to be stabilized enough for us to come together and work on the relationship. I mean, that's the way I've always seen it. And I think if you jump into couples too soon, it can actually be counterproductive unless you've got a really good therapist who understands we can do this now, but that's going to.
We have to hold that off. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you want somebody like Matt, who is a genuine expert on EFT. There's a lot of good
EFT therapists out there, but anyway, keep going.
But Matt's the best.
Oh, thank you, Scott.
These last two are just kind of statements, so I'm going to read them both, and then if you want to comment on them. My husband has been in recovery for 27 years, CSAT counseling groups. He's had several relapses. He never tells me. I catch him. It's hard to feel safe with him. I have a hard time wanting to connect with him. Right, so there's that.
So let me respond on that one real quick. I don't blame you for having a hard time wanting to connect with him, because it is hard to feel safe. And so I would just try and tell him, like, look, it's super painful and I know it's scary. It must be terrifying to tell me. I know you're worried I'm going to pull away. You're going to worried. You might be worried I'm going to freak out on you. But like, I can handle a slip up. I can't handle the lies. I can't handle catching you. And so what would it take for us to have you be more honest and open with me about a slip? Right now, I'm not asking you to be perfectly sober. I'm asking you to be honest with me when you're not. And let's just start there. So that, but it's hard to feel safe. Of course, it's hard time wanting to connect. Well, yeah, you feel lied to. We don't want to connect to people who lie to us. It's just, so anyway, I'm just validating you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this other one, this is the follow-up on the 11 days, 22 years one. He has overflowed like a fountain since D-Day. He focuses on everything else, and all I want to do is share my pain. And again, validate. Of course you do. Let's get this guy a CSAT.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm grateful that he's overflowing. He probably feels a tremendous amount of relief that you're able to hold that space despite all the secrecy that he's held on to for over 22 years. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing that he's opening up, but the truth is his shame is probably so high that he doesn't know how to hold your pain. And that's something he's got to learn. Holding your pain is going to be an amazing step in the process. And right now he's just going, I never thought it would be this relieving to be able to be this honest and to have you still be here, which I think is beautiful. But you have every right to have him hold your pain. And right now, this is the super unfair part that I hate about that I hate about this. And so good job on you. But unfortunately he's gonna have to learn to hold your pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want some help finding a CSAT for him or you or anyone, click the contact us button on sex and relationship healing or seeking integrity. They go straight to Tammy Berhouse. She knows every CSAT. She'll help you
Yeah,
find it.
it's so
She
funny because
does.
I reached out to Tammy and I was like, Tammy, I need somebody in this area of the country. Tell me who's good. And
Well,
she was like, gave me a name. I was like, sweet. I passed it right along. And
yeah.
I reached to Tammy more than I even reached other CSATs because it's like she
Yeah.
knows more of them than I do.
He knows them all. So we'll help you find somebody and somebody who's 11 days in. Let's get this guy a CSAT and get him
Seriously.
on track with sex addiction recovery. And he's overflowing. So he wants it. He's feeling some relief.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very hopeful for him and you. So yeah. Anything else you want to say? What a great topic today, Matt. And anything you want to say to take us out?
I mean, everybody reach out and get connection. Like life is too lonely. Life is too hard being alone. And so try to push past your barriers of connection. Even if all you do is think of two people who you can reach out to and tell them you're thankful for them. And ask them if they'd be up for talking sometime soon. Try to do a phone call or a video call or face-to-face if possible. Don't do this alone. It is way too hard to do life alone. You need lovable, huggable people like Scott.
Thank you, Matt. Matt is also huggable, lovable. I wish we lived in like the vicinity because we would hang out.
We totally would hang out.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Matt, as always. Thank you, everybody, for great questions. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. See you guys.